All right. Hi, everyone. Hope you're doing well this afternoon. My name is Chelsea Barnes. I'm a Director of Government Affairs and Strategy at Appalachian Voices. I'm based in our Norton, Virginia office here in Wise County. Um, it's great to see y'all. We've got our whole federal team, Quentin King and Kevin Zedek here as well, that will be dropping stuff into the chat and answering questions as we need. And Abby from our communications team is here as well. If you've got any um, as we have communications type questions, she might be jumping in there too. And we're going to go ahead and get started here. And for folks' awareness, we're also live streaming over to Facebook so that people can join that way as well, just so you're aware. So welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'm kind of bummed out today because the House passed this bill that we've been fighting against. It was even worse last night when they released a new text than it had been before, but we're charging through together and glad everyone is here today to keep up the good fight. So just as a little bit of background, Appalachian Voices has been putting on these weekly call-ins, Holler from the Hollers on Thursdays at noon, because there's so much going on at the federal level and it can be really hard to keep track of. You've got all the agencies and the Department of Government Efficiency or DOGE doing their thing, and you've got Congress working on a variety of bills that are impacting our land, air, and water, as well as our healthcare and education and everything you can think of. There's a lot going on. So we're doing this every week to try to help people um, collaborate on our efforts. It can be hard to know where to plug in and keep track of everything. So each week we're picking one issue so that we can make calls together to Congress because we know that calls to congressional offices are one of the biggest, have the most impact of any of the actions that we can take. And if we're all calling us about the same thing, that makes an even bigger impact. We also pair that with emails and social media and everything else, do it all together and it makes the biggest impact. But we know that calls really make a difference with most congressional offices. So this week, similar to last week, we are making calls about the House reconciliation bill that did pass the House this morning. And that is our what we're calling the polluter and billionaires bill. It is called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or you can call it the Budget Reconciliation Bill or HR1. It does now have a bill number. So I'm going to go ahead and advance here to the next slide. So what we've got going on is the budget reconciliation process. For anyone who's not familiar, it is one of the few tools that the Senate has that can circumvent the filibuster. So the Senate only needs 51 votes to pass a budget reconciliation bill. This is separate from government funding. It can only have to do with budget financial issues. It can't have everything that's in the bill has to have some sort of budgetary impact, and allows the Senate to get around that 60 vote filibuster that y'all are probably familiar with. So it's used a lot of times when you by for majority party priorities, when you have a trifecta of both the House, the Senate, and the president all in the same party. Anytime you have that situation, they look for ways to use this tool because they can get around having to work in a bipartisan manner. Um, so that's the bill we talked about last week. It's the same bill. If you were here last week, they were calling it the Renewing the American Dream Act, and now it's called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. We prefer calling it Budget Reconciliation Bill or HR1, since we don't think it's particularly beautiful. So what's in the bill now? It's changed a little bit, but largely the same as what we were talking about last week if you were here, but we'll go over that again. One piece of it, well, a number of pieces of it relate to permitting for fossil fuel and other infrastructure companies. There are provisions that allow pipeline, natural gas, drilling, and mining companies to pay fees to either bypass completely certain permitting processes or skip steps in the process, basically to get expedited permitting, as long as they pay an extra fee to the government. Those permitting processes and environmental laws are in place to ensure that we're protecting people's health and safety when there is infrastructure and energy development, and being able to pay to skip those processes is um, corrupt, for lack of a better word. The bill also requires a 25% increase to timber harvests on national forest land, mandates more than 4 million acres of additional Western public lands be made available for coal mining, mandates quarterly lease sales of public lands to oil and gas companies or in any state where there is land available for oil and gas leasing. Further, it repeals all of the residential energy tax credits for things like solar energy efficiency, wind, and also quickly phases out the commercial tax credits for those same technologies, as well as some energy manufacturing tax credits that were created to help make sure that we're making more of those technologies in the US. It also repeals and rescinds funding for numerous pollution reduction programs, including programs that were in place to reduce pollution at schools and other clean energy and climate resiliency programs. It limits access to food assistance, known as SNAP, and Medicaid healthcare that benefits low-income folks. And all this to extend tax breaks for the wealthiest people in the country. We have some information about that we can share that demonstrates that most of the benefits of this bill will go to the wealthiest in the country. This is one such resource that shows where the tax benefits will go. And as you can see, large amounts of that go to the richest folks in the country. And I know a lot of folks, think, well, tax credits for clean energy, I can't take advantage of those. But what a lot of people don't understand is that having tax credits available for these clean energy technologies actually lowers electricity prices for everyone, because your utility company can also take advantage of the tax credits, and that means it's lowering your electricity price. So there have been a number of studies that show that if Congress repeals these tax credits, that everyone's electricity rates are going to go up, even if you don't have solar, even if you don't want to go solar yourself, or you weren't using the energy efficiency tax incentives. Your bills are still going to go up as a result of the repeal of these tax credits, because it's going to raise prices across the board, approximately 7.3% nationally for residential customers. And for the Appalachian region specifically, we know that a lot of people rely on nutrition assistance, SNAP benefits. About 20% of people in Central Appalachia, and a lot of folks in the region also use Medicaid. More than 40% of adults in Central Appalachia use Medicaid. So where we are, as I mentioned, early this morning, the House did pass the bill by one vote. And so now the bill goes to the Senate. We've already heard a number of Republican senators say that they are not going to just pass this bill as is. They want to make a lot of changes. And a lot of what's in the bill as is not going to pass the filibuster rules. It will get kind of stripped out because it doesn't comply with those budget reconciliation rules on the Senate side, which has very stringent rules about what can or can't pass through the budget reconciliation process. So we know there are going to be changes, and we know that Republican senators don't like certain provisions. So we need to make our voices loud and make sure that they're hearing from us what we don't like about it, so that they take those into account. Because the Senate's going to make changes, it will have to go back to the House for a vote again before it would go to President Trump's desk for signing. The Senate has indicated they want to do this. They want to pass their bill before the 4th of July. So basically all through the month of June, they'll be working on this. So now it's a really critical time to make sure our voices are heard. So what we're doing today is we are calling our senators. We're going to make sure that they hear from us. We've got a sample script on the next page that you can use. You can pick the issues that are most important to you, why you oppose this bill. You don't have to list everything that we talked about. We've got a few bullet points there, but, make it your own, make it your, honest story, what you're most concerned about. We've got the Capitol switchboard number here that you can call, and we'll also put that in the chat, because when I advance to the next slide, you won't be able to see that phone number anymore, but we'll make sure it's in the chat if you need it, or you can write it down right now. I also recommend saving it in your phone, because we'll be doing this a lot. So we also have a toolkit, which we'll share in the chat, that has all the same information and more. It has links where you can find your senator if you don't know who your senator is. Or you should have two senators unless you're Kevin and you live in DC and you don't have any senators, unfortunately. It's an issue for another day. Uh, but if you can use that toolkit, it has sample language, links, everything you need. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take the next 10 minutes or so to call those two senators. And bonus, if you want to call your House rep, you can say thank you if they voted no, and you can also tell them you're disappointed in their vote if they voted yes. Hopefully Quentin or Kevin can add the link so you can see who voted which way. Largely, it was along party lines. There were, I think there was one no vote on that from a Republican, one present vote from a Republican, and a couple that were absent. But if you're not sure, that we should be able to drop that link in the chat. But right now we really are focused on the Senate because we want to make sure that they make this bill better before they pass it. So I'm going to jump to the next slide and then I'm going to open the chat and see if there are any questions. But if you are ready, you can go ahead and start making calls.